Q37, no shit. All right, we talked about the fast attention skid. We're getting ready to rock it out on this 370. Motor is ready to come out. Let's go ahead, get this motor out of here. We'll get the body off the entire assembly and we'll get to work. All right, so we're gonna get started putting our turbos on this engine. So we're gonna prep this setup. Again, we've got our badass Zona turbos. This is the passenger side. We're gonna start by putting our banjo fittings and water line on the inside of the turbo. And again, the kit has everything you need, banjo bolt fitting. So really cool, easy. This kit is a pleasure to put on. I'm using a little bit of anti-seize to do the same thing on the AN side, so it doesn't ball the threads if you ever have to remove them. So this is going to be the crossover hose that comes off the passenger side, runs underneath the engine. That's going to run to the outside of the other drum. And what I like to do is I like to leave the banjo bolt loose so that the AN fitting can swivel, and that way we can get in there with our wrench to tighten up that hose. So we'll do that next. Okay, so this is our crossover line that's going to go onto that banjo fitting. Before we install it, however, whenever we do an in-house install, I like to use the fire sleeve. This is made by DEI. It does two things. It'll protect the hose from the extreme heat, since it's going to be up right next to the turbine housing, and it's also going to prevent keeps rubbing through with the engine torquing and moving. You can actually saw right through something. So this will do 2 jobs. So we're going to go ahead and add that. This isn't part of the kit. This is something we do in-house. So we like to do this. It'll help keep the hose living a longer life and the other parts next to it as well. And this stuff is always a joy to put on. So we also used compressed air to help get it through, since it's a straight hose on each end, the fittings through. And after we do this and get it all the way through, we're just going to through the inside of the hose, make sure we don't have any debris, some of that fiberglass stuff inside there.
Brothel, 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 brothel.
All right, and there you have it. We've got our hose in the fire sleeve. Go ahead and blow it out, and we'll go ahead and install it. Okay, everything's nice and tight. Banjo bolt's tight. Our hose is tight. We've got it pointed down. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and install this bad boy onto the passenger side exhaust manifold. Let's go do that. Feed this line through, so underneath the engine. All right. Set this right there. Go ahead and get our clamp in. First, we're going to set that on the manifold. I have the clamp pretty loose just to help us get it over the manifold and also the flange on the turbine housing. So, this is where it can be a little tricky if you don't have any help. All right, guys, we have our turbo onto our exhaust manifold. I have this all loose. We're going to leave it loose until we get the rotation that we need to get, because again, you got to think the downpipe's going to go on. It has to line up to the wastegate outlet. So this is going to stay loose like that so we can manipulate it. If you come over here, you'll see kind of why we go, I guess, to the drastic measures of trying to keep heat away. You can see how close the turbine housing is to this crank sensor. So we've done fire sleeve and heat sleeve over the wiring harness here to move everything up out of the way and also to protect the connector. So we have the connector covered on the crank sensor. So next thing we're going to do is put in our outlet hose. We'll get this guy in, and then we'll move on to putting on the driver's side turbo. All right, we're ready to get our driver's side turbo on. You can tell the clocking's differently on this bad boy. Again, we're going to start with our coolant fitting. We're going to get this straight adapter installed first on the inside of the turbo. This is going to be going to the T, the block T that Fast Intentions makes that goes on the heater core hoses. And we've gone ahead and taken our hose. We've prepped it already. You can see I put 2 pieces on. The reason being is you have an insulated clamp that's going to go and hold this to the block. So this clamp is a bit too small when you have the fire sleeve on. So it's going to go something like that. Get a little bit of the anti-seize on our threads, and this hose is going to point straight back with the 90 attaching to the adapter side on the turbo. We've got our coolant line all bolted down. The next step before we get the turbo onto the manifold is we're going to install our oil line. So this kit comes with the restrictors already installed on the CHRA. It is restricted. You'll be able to see that little restrictor hole that's there. So that's all good to go. They use red Loctite, which is great. That'll help seal it, keep it in place. And this is the way the line comes with the kit. This is going to be the 90, which is going to go on the restrictor. And the other side is going to go to the oil adapter fitting. that comes with the kit. This hose has the fire sleeve, which is great. Again, I like to be a little more cautious, and we're just going to add some of the heat sleeve over this as well. So it's because the turbine housing is right here, and we'll use some stainless steel wire to keep this attached and make it look pretty as well. So we'll go ahead and do that next. Get our line tightened down, and then we can go ahead and install the turbo onto the driver's side. You guys got to be very careful when installing these lines. If there's debris that's any bigger than 35 thou, you're going to have an issue. So it's going to get stuck. Oil's not going to get past the restrictor, and you're going to destroy your turbo in short order. So we've gone ahead, cleaned these all out. We're going to tape up this end of it after we get the line installed to make sure nothing gets in on this side. All right. So we'll get our rotation. I've used a little bit of NECs on the threads again, and we're going to have it come out just like that. We'll get it tightened down. You see I have the clamps on both sides of the turbos on the inside, angled this way, outwards. This is going to make it easier. You don't want it out here. It's going to get too close to the chassis. So we have our clamps this way, and then our downpipe will have pointed downwards. Pretty straightforward. But you can come and see over here on this side what I mean about really protecting this oil line. You can see how close it gets. So it's right there next to the manifold. So that's kind of why we do this, to protect it. So fire sleeve, heat sleeve, and we've got our stainless wire to hold it. Zip ties in here would not survive. As we have our passenger oil feed line for this turbo all ready to go. We've added our heat sleeve on it, and we're going to go ahead and install it. Fast Intentions has a really cool adapter they use. So the oil filter gets relocated with their kit. This is going to feed and go to the oil cooler, and then there's a fitting at the top of it that feeds the passenger side turbo. So fitting's going to go from here, and then we're going to go and attach this to the turbo, which has the restrictor on it. So we'll do that now. That way we can get the orientation just right on the hose so that it's not twisting on the AN fittings. And we're going to have a insulated clamp that's going to go here, keep this line in place. We're going to install our last remaining coolant line. This one's going to go on the outside of the turbo and attach to the Fast Intentions water block. Goes again on the heater core hoses. And this line is loose. Again, we're not going to tighten anything up quite yet. Definitely going to add NECs to this fitting because this is aluminum on a steel fitting. So this has the greatest chance of galling. So make sure we put some NECs there. And we've got our oil line nice and tight now. We've got enough clearance everywhere. We'll add a little zip tie here. We've got our insulated clamp going into our oil filter adapter block coming together. All right, we're ready to install our tile MVS wastegates. This bad boy has different port configurations. So depending on how the wastegate is clocked, you can have your ports wherever you need them. So we're gonna get this set up. You'll pay attention, it says air. You definitely don't wanna leave one of these block off ports open. Otherwise, you're going to have uncontrollable boost. So we're gonna set this up. These wastegates also have the optional water port cooling. We're not going to be using those. This is a good idea, especially if the car is going to be road raced. That'll help keep the wastegates cool. Any endurance racing, you know, on the street, drag racing stuff, not a big deal. Isn't going to see a ton of heat. With the ports that we're not going to use a little bit of the Loctite. I like to use red. It acts as a thread sealant, and it'll help prevent these from ever coming off. So we're gonna have this port that we're gonna use and the top port on the side. So this is your side ports, and then you have two top ports. If you're gonna be doing a single port configuration, you're just going to be using one port and the other one is going to vent to atmosphere. All right, we're gonna go ahead and cap the side top port. We're not gonna use that one. And what you're gonna have is you're gonna be left with this port open and this port open. And then you're gonna have just your water ports, which you're just gonna leave those open to atmosphere. We'll get these snugged up, block off plugs that you're gonna use. That one's prepped. The next step is to get this one on our manifold. Don't forget, sits inside the wastegate, otherwise it's not gonna seal. And we have the clamps that we're gonna use. Once we get the wastegates on, we will put on our ports, our hose barbs. So this way we can get the signal to the wastegates from our boost controller. The engine side, we'll go ahead, now that we have these all set up, we'll go ahead and get these installed on our manifold, our ports, our hose barbs that we're gonna use.